guys, in this video I want to show you how we can do an easy chord melody arrangement on a famous old Mexican song, Perfidia. All we need is the melody and the root of each chord, and it's going to be the perfect starting point to building your own more complicated chord melody arrangement. This song Perfidia is from the golden age of Mexican music. Songs like Bésame Mucho, Sabor a mí, Quizás, 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 those are just these classic boleros. This is definitely in that style. And a bolero rhythm can be a little bit ambiguous. If you think of Ravel's bolero, that's in 3/4 time. But these boleros are definitely never in 3/4 time. They're always in 4/4. I think of them as rumbas that are not syncopated, as oxymoronic as that sounds. A lot of gypsy jazz players play a bolero rhythm, and they go like this. They go... They're going 1 triplet 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 triplet 2 and 3 and 4, and that's something that we could do for this, although here we're not really going to strum the chords. I do want to talk about the chords a little bit though, so that you can, if you know a little bit more about chords, you can fill out this arrangement to fit the level you're at right now. Just briefly about that strumming pattern though, if we were playing nylon string guitar in the Spanish way, we could use our rasgueo technique to kind of mimic what those gypsy jazz guys are doing. So that would sound like this: 1 triplet 2 and slap and 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. Now a rumba would be 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and an accent on the and of 2. These don't tend to do that, although it all fits together. It's in 4/4 time, and you can do it however you like. What we're going to do in this arrangement is just take the melody and then just take the root of every chord and play just that in the bass and let it ring out while we play the melody on top. So the chords of this song, it's like a classic doo-wop progression from the 50s. G, E minor, A minor or A minor 7 to D7. In theory terms, we would call that a 1 to the 6, a 2, 5. You hear that a lot in old songs from the 50s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So the C is interchangeable with the A minor. Those are relatives of each other. They're from the subdominant family. This is the 4 chord, this is the 2. See how they're practically the same? But in this song, we're going to use A in the bass for that A minor chord. This progression always reminds me of that song Heart and Soul. You've heard that one before. Many songs use this progression. So those are the chords: G, E minor, A minor to D, or A minor 7 to D7. So the bass notes, of course, would be G, and then E, then A, D7. Each chord gets 2 beats for the most part in the song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's pretty easy that the last 2 chords are just open strings, and the melody goes like this. Okay, so what does that sound like when we put those together? This next part of the A section melody changes chords a little bit, where it goes A minor to D7 as expected, but instead of going to G, it goes to B7. So we're going to play B in the bass twice because it lasts the whole measure. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the melody is this. So let's put them together. 2, 3, 4, then we are back to A, and we're back to the main melody. So that was the closing of the A section. It did the same melody that we had before, but instead of going to B7, it goes to D, so we have D in the bass. Melody note is F sharp, and then we have G in the bass, because it's a G chord, and G is the melody note, so we have our ending here. We're going to go to C in the bass and then come back, because the song's going to go from G to C, going into the next section. Here's the whole first part. Okay, in the B section of the songs, it's going to be a little bit harder. Definitely pay attention to the fingers I'm using because it really matters in setting you up for what's happening next and making sure that we can keep that bass note ringing out when it's not an open string. So in the B section, a little more complicated. We're going to be going to different chords here. It's a C chord for a few measures, then a B7. This is hinting at kind of a minor key thing, or you could even say it's like a Phrygian sound. You know what that is. So B7 wants to go to E minor, but it never does in this song. It just has that kind of Spanishy Latin feel to it, and then we're going to end up going back to G, and that's kind of what happened very briefly in the A section anyway. So here's the melody. Okay, let's put that together with the chords. Be careful here, we're going to play, instead of our ring finger on the C note, we're going to play our middle finger so that we can play all these other surrounding notes and keep that note ringing out. So let's put the bass notes together with that melody. Notice there on the end I strummed the whole chord, A minor 7 to D7, because there was nothing happening in the melody anyway. Now we're kind of back to the A section, but it's an abbreviated form of the A section, so let's call it a C section because it's its own thing. It's kind of half of the A section, or it's like the main refrain. So let's say this is A, B, C form. So from that last part we're going A minor 7 to D7, and we're back to the main thing. So I think this sounds pretty cool, even though it's simple. You don't have to have a bunch of complicated stuff to have a chord melody arrangement. And what a chord melody is, if you're new to that term, is just basically the melody and the chords at the same time. If you play fingerstyle guitar, classical, any solo stuff like that, you're playing chord melody arrangements all the time. They're just not called that. It's a classical piece, right? Well, in Romanza, just as an example, right, you've got the melody, you have the accompaniment in between these two strings. The melody is on the first string, and then you're playing the bass. Here we're trying to just break it down to the most important two elements, the melody and the root of the chord. If you're comfortable with what we did so far, you can start adding in more of the chord if you know what the chord looks like. So we would go like this. All I'm really doing is wiggling my fingers around inside of the chord that I'm already holding. You got to keep time and stuff like that. Sometimes it's easier to do that if you know what the chord is and what the melody is, and then just do whatever you feel like at that moment, as long as it's in the chord that you're holding, rather than having to read some arrangement that has all these particular little notes. Sometimes that's more trouble than it's worth. Try this on any song that you know or something that you're working on. Just figure out what the melody is, and you got to know what the chords are, and play just the bass note of the chord, and that's your starting point for a chord melody solo arrangement. And if you're not ready for it, you don't have to go any further than that. I think this sounds pretty awesome on its own. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like stuff like this, check out my membership site where I go into a lot of stuff like this, like Besame Mucho from the ground up, just the chords, just the melody, putting those two elements together, putting more notes from the chords in there, talking about music theory, how you can make it your own, how you can improvise over it. Also for the song Quizás and all kinds of stuff like that. When you play nylon string guitar, you can play music from all over the world, and it's so fun. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.